The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soccer to the Max. I am your host Sean Garmer, and I am back after these two lovely people filled in for me since I had to do stuff. So thankfully, all three of us are back, and of course that means Miss Rachael McKriger is here,
Hello.
and Mr. Erik Watkins with his conundrums in tow.
Hey, Google Sheets is still very handy. I've just found another use for it. Nevertheless, we kept the seat nice and warm for you.
Well, I appreciate that, and we've got a lot to talk about this week outside of just, Major League Soccer. So much going on. Hopefully we can still hit the hour mark on this show. It's lots to get into, but I guess we might as well start off with the Major League Soccer Week 6. You guys are going to have to help me out here because I didn't get to watch too many of the games. Too much to do on a Sunday, but we just finished watching this Colorado Sporting KC game. A total shellacking by Sporting KC, really. They dominated this game. Gelson Fernandez. Good Lord, man.
That's why Kansas City has them. I mean, when you're pulling moves like that already after a killer touch from Dwyer and you're making Tim Howard look kind of stupid, I mean, wow.
They were making that whole entire backline look really stupid the entire evening. And then,
missing?
What?
Did you see who was missing?
Yeah, Sam Cronin missing because I was talking
Axel
to...
Schubert.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I was talking to a Colorado Rapids reporter, and he was not happy about this trade at all.
I just don't get it. I mean, I never got it because I understand the necessary change in philosophy for creating a better attack, but you don't trade arguably one of your best backs on one of the top defensive units in the entire league to make that happen. You're just giving yourself a double whammy.
You traded your captain away, too.
I mean, they're doing a disgrace to the yellow jerseys. That's my first point. I'm sorry.
Well, they looked pretty bad in those yellow jerseys tonight, so they need to go back to the purple.
I kind of have to agree with that one, just on general principle.
Hey, what do you think about the trade, Rachel? You kind of agree? It seems... I guess this is the negative of the taking the break, right? This wouldn't have happened, apparently, if they didn't have that little winter, the break with the international games.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to look at the other team that they traded with. Not like Minnesota's getting any better.
Oh, jeez.
Well, they need defense really bad, so...
Even
they
with
need talent, period.
They still got whopped even with their defense. And Sam Cronin, yeah, he's important, but Axel Schubert is a giant. You take him out of the mix, and then you're running past guys that are the same height as you. You put Axel Schubert in there, and he's just a living, walking brick wall.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, but look at the positives. Look, these things don't always turn out immediately for these teams. A lot of times you have to be able to gel with your team, especially in defense. Your backline has to get solidified, and Minnesota already has problems with that. I think...
That's put it lightly.
Yeah. I think Cronin and Schuberg will definitely. You provide a veteran presence. That's got to help them get better. I can't imagine they get worse, but.
Okay. Does anybody remember that Red Bull commercial where the coach was berating his players for being down 5-0 at the half? Minnesota United is not too far off from that team in that commercial. I mean...
Yeah.
Yes, I get this trade for them, but 2 players where you got holes on another, I don't know, 8? That's only a drop in the bucket.
You got to start somewhere, though.
Oh, but who did what with Minnesota to make Colorado take that bait is all I want to know.
They were thinking about, well, we need to get better in attack. They need to get better in defense.
Okay.
I mean, it showed in the game. They have problems attacking.
Yes, but while you... No. It's just no. I can see they had problems attacking, but then you trade away your best part, and all of a sudden you're giving up 3 insane goals, hanging Howard out to dry.
Well, if they could,
what kind of fairness is that?
If they could mount any kind of anything going forward, maybe Sporting KC sort of has to pay attention more to what's happening in the back line than just being able to freely go forward, because they don't have to worry about what Colorado's going to do behind them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Minnesota did play FC Dallas, so they're going to make anybody look stupid on that front.
Well, and the good news is it was only 2-0, but the bad news is for FC Dallas, after what happened against Pachuca, it's only 2-0.
Hey, we are not allowed to talk about that.
Look, I don't mean to bring up any fresh wounds, but if after what happened, at the point when it happened, if I'm FC Dallas and I'm playing the Loons, I'm trying to set an MLS record just to prove a point, just on GP.
I don't know. I kind of give them credit for bouncing back and getting another win in the league and not just sort of shutting down after you were so close.
I mean, a good win is a good win. I take nothing away from that, but it's just like, I don't know. I would have just been playing a lot angrier. Being a version of Russell Westbrook and just like, get out my way. I'm going to shoot. This is what's going to happen. I'm mad.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook officially setting that record with the game today. So congrats to him. And
something else to break Colorado's hearts.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Erik, DC, finally getting off the schneid now. Is this the end of it? Are we back to the DC that people should be taking seriously now that they're winning?
I wouldn't quite say fully back, but they're on the way there. The last few minutes of that match was still pretty hairy. NYCFC was very close to an equalizer, had a lot of good chances up front, but United did a great job in holding them off, and at least there's still a good semblance of a crowd at the waning days of RFK to come and support them. On top of being a lot cleaner game that I've seen really the past couple of seasons, yeah, they're officially off the schneid, but they're not back.
Rachael, I mean, Orlando's NWSL team made a big splash on Friday, but then their team wins today. The MLS team, so
We'll get into their big splash topic later because I have a lot. Well, not a lot. I can condense it. I can control myself. I have self-control.
I was about to say, I have a whole article with you talking about it. So
I have self-control, but I watched the match today with Orlando City, and I was very impressed. I mean, I was surprised that match ended in a 1-0 finish. I thought there could have been so much more. New York Red Bulls, their defense completely fell apart. And now I think it's time for Jesse Marsch to, hit the panic button and figure out what the heck is going wrong. But then again, I can tell you what's going wrong. They traded away Dax McCarthy. That's what's wrong. And, oh man, Sasha Kleshton's probably like, why, Jesse? Why did you do that? But, wow, that game today, it was quite the match. Erik, I was very impressed with the Lions today.
Hey,
and their stadium is gorgeous.
Hey, I might be making a trip later this season if I can coordinate some things to go down there and experience it myself. But Orlando City became through-ball city, and you're absolutely right. A couple big misses. It could have been 3-0. It could have been 4-0. So for this one match, I'm not crying about the McCarty trade because it worked in our favor. But another good thing that I saw, Laren and Rivas, this is the start of a beautiful partnership. Loving their communication up front, how they're recognizing each other, and how the midfield is really pointing them out, especially to set up some good counterattacks with end-to-end action. Oh, very, very happy.
Rivas was awesome today.
did Nocerino start? Because they made a big deal about this is his comeback time. He's finally going to be the player that they signed from AC Milan. Or did he not play in this game?
I can't remember, honestly.
I don't think he did. Because in all that time, I didn't hear her. Nope. I was wrong. He did start, but yeah, injured after just 17 minutes.
Yeah, that's right, because Servando came on, and he was the one that scored.
Because I was wondering why I didn't see or hear much of him, and then it's like, that's why.
Just has a bad year last year coming in, taking that time to adjust to MLS, and then he gets hurt. Just bad all around for Mr. Nocerino. Hope things get better, but on the plus side, his team wins, and that's what matters in the end. Speaking of winning,
Jonathan Spector really, really surprised me in that match. He had that goal line clearance that basically saved the 3 points for them. He really impressed me.
The magic of home cooking. We got something going on. This is the one time I'm thankful that a new stadium was built.
And poor Luis Robles, I mean, he was like a one-man band. His defense didn't help him out at all.
Yeah, I could see the looks on his face, and I guess I should be kind of thankful I didn't read lips because I saw a fair amount of screaming coming out of him. Oy.
Pretty sure with if you're getting bombarded very much like Howard was, that's what you're going to be doing is screaming a ton. The Vancouver fans have to be. They try to make a game of it in the CONCACAF Champions League, but they failed, and it's an all-Mexican final coming up at some point here. But they continue to have woes in the league, now losing to RSL on Mike Petke getting his big first win. So this proves is this more about Vancouver just being that bad, or is it the new coach bump?
I wouldn't necessarily that bad. First of all, this solidifies my rule that I was saying about a couple of weeks ago. MLS has a limit of one Snow Classico per week. This time it was in Salt Lake City. Reason number one. Reason number two, Vancouver wasn't bad, but I think they were just hung over. After that match against Tigres, which, as you said, there was a bit of a letdown, going down to Salt Lake, and kudos to them. They had one or two chances, but mostly sat back, prevented RSL from doing much of anything in what was an extremely physical game in the first half. While the conditions were half decent, they kept it scoreless. Then snow started coming down even harder. RSL played their pitch, especially with how the ball was and how it deadened after under a good, I would say, quarter inch of snow.
Well, hold on, this is Vancouver we're talking about. These guys should These guys should know how to play in snow.
I was thinking the same thing, but then I remember BC Place is a dome. They haven't dealt with a lot of snow since BC Place was reconstructed, and they played outdoors at the makeshift Empire Field. That was a couple years ago.
See, the fate of dome stadiums not helping in this regard. Rachael, Seattle drawing with San Jose, and the other big draw, Toronto and Atlanta drawing 2-2 as well. Two good point for Atlanta, it seems, and San Jose has been sneaky good this year. So, do you kind of just take the point with that one for your Sounders?
I think the Sounders should have won that. I think they should have, could have, and would have won that. But I think when it comes to the two draws, Toronto and Atlanta, both sides, I think were really relieved with getting a point each. But I thought Toronto could have done more. I mean, that backheel pass from Josie Altidore to Sebastian Giovinco, I could watch that on repeat all day. But I think looking at the two teams and looking at how good Atlanta's been and how relatively good Toronto has been, and they've been playing without Sebastian Giovinco for a while. Now he's back. I think both teams were relieved to get the point, but I think Toronto and Seattle should have won their matches, but I think both teams can be okay with a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's still early in the season. Getting points is all that matters right now. But for Atlanta, you really getting anything early on is going to help you, especially you got one of your big players in Martinez out right now. It seems like Tata Martino's finally kind of found that group. Sometimes he has some of his better players coming off the bench too, which is interesting. So.
Well, I mean, between that, the elbow fitting in nicely, in real credit to them, those last 15 minutes, they were a man down. Very early, extra bit of adversity to tack on to a team, and they held on for the point. Like Rachael said, that's more of a relief than anything.
Chicago making it 2-for-2 against Columbus again. They beat him once again, 1-0. Dax McCarty looking really good here. And just Chicago, they seem to be on the up, at least.
And who can we in part thank for that?
Bastian Schweinsteiger.
Ah! I was waiting for that setup, and you didn't let me down. But all jokes aside, he's blending in almost pitch perfect to this team. And with how hot Columbus is to start their season, getting a pretty big 1-0 win, and this could be a little something sneaky, a little teeny bit.
Hey, I mean, you have the cover in the back, so you let Schweinsteiger kind of have free roam a bit, and seems to be working out pretty well. Chicago right now. You've they solidified that front line in the offseason, bringing in who they brought in. I'm telling you, they were my sort of surprise for watch out for this team. Now, I wasn't counting on Mr. Schweinsteiger coming, of course, but just I think this is gonna work out quite well for the Fire. Watch out. And a team we've been watching, Houston, they go down to New England and lose. So the Revs keep on the hot streak right now.
What? Huh? Who flipped the switch? Who crawled out from under a rock? Where did this team come from?
They got too much talent to not be crawling out from under that rock, honestly.
Okay, but talent is one thing. I've seen a lot of talented teams crap the bed thanks to somebody up above them not caring, and that's been kind of a Revolution tradition the past few years, but I can't put my finger on it, but something's actually cohesive, and that cohesiveness is translating on the pitch.
Maybe they are crafting a winning team despite the owner.
God,
bad.
I know it took me a second to realize that. Oh, jeez, but yeah. That aside, Boston can't have too many good teams. I'm sorry. Can they just go back to just being terrible so that way I can live in peace?
So, Rachel, I mean, the one of the big things going into the week, U.S. Women's National Team was playing Russia. And that was total just obliteration happening in that game. But I think even we kind of maybe expected the U.S. to play well. Maybe not that well. But probably the bigger thing is the CBA finally got worked out.
Finally. It's about time. I watched the match today, obviously, the very conflicting match that I had to watch. Side note, every time the USA scored, I'm sure as you all remember from last week, I was born in Russia, so every time the USA scored, I went, yay? ? No, I was happy with the result for the most part, but I was more happy with the result of the CBA. Julie Foudy said it today, and I couldn't say it any better. It's about time it happened. There was a lot to this new CBA, and something else that somebody from who is a lot bigger of a journalist than we are, Grant Wall said something that really struck me, and that was that Becky Sauerbrunn is now kind of like the de facto captain, was Grant Wall's words, because she stepped up in such a big role to get them to this point. She did. Samantha Mewis, a young player, she also stepped up. But as many know, I'm sure Carly Lloyd and Becky Sauerbrunn are both the co-captains of the U.S. women's national team. But now everyone's looking towards Becky as their big leader because of her involvement with the CBA and with the agreements. And what is going on with the CBA is it's a 5-year deal. It'll go through the 2019 World Cup in France and the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. I'm sure we know the U.S. is definitely going to qualify for both of those. According to Sports Illustrated, the new deal includes a commitment from U.S. Soccer to pay the NWSL salaries for allocated players, which the minimum, I don't have the exact numbers. I saw a tweet about it. I don't have the exact numbers, but the minimum and the maximum for the players to get has significantly increased. It's still not quite a living wage, but it's a lot better, and it's a lot more professional for them. It's still not money that, Alex Morgan and Carly Lloyd are going to make and what players are going to make playing maybe over in England, France, Germany, but it's still a major improvement. The CBA also has a return commitment by the players to compete in the NWSL. It really improves NWSL standards like hotels, transportation. It also does that with the national team. It has licensing agreement rights and stuff with sponsors. It also has an increase in direct bonus compensation also with the NWSL salaries. And then another important aspect of the CBA is also better financial support for players that are pregnant and are adopting a child, which is something that Amy Rodriguez, Sydney Leroux, the now retired Shannon Box, that's something that they advocated for because Amy Rodriguez just came back from having her child and has just made a return to the national team. Sydney Leroux's getting there, and Shannon Box just recently retired, but she had a child recently too. It's a huge step in the right direction for women's football domestically, and it's also a big stepping stone for people around the world. Now you see federations like, I know Costa Rica is trying to up their standards. Even in Russia, their competitors this weekend, they are trying to get more schools. They said during today's broadcast that there are 3 main programs for girls to play football in and to get them groomed in. It's not as big domestically, but it is growing. And this new CBA is a huge step in the right direction internally and externally.
I mean, that's it's great, and it also helps the league a lot that the U.S. national team players are getting paid by U.S. Soccer Federation, so that doesn't count against their cap either. And
it makes them want to stay. The increase in their salaries and the better accommodations, flying, hotel-wise, that's going to make players want to stay and not go over to Europe. I still think that you're going to see a wave of players going to Europe because that's where players tactically get better. And that's where, over in Europe, there's football 24/7. That's the culture over in Europe. Here, not so much. But now more players are going to want to stay domestically.
I mean, we've certainly gotten there with, you can pretty much watch almost any soccer you want 24/7. But yeah, you're right. Having that mindset of this is kind of what everything is living and breathing and motivated by in Europe, where it's not here and probably, let's be honest, won't ever be here. But the strides have certainly been taken, and I can't. I'm happy for those players. I'm happy for, this encourages more. Any of the women playing, any of the kids playing youth soccer now, any of the women playing in college soccer that, aren't playing for the U.S. Women's National Team, or, aren't still have a few years of where they're sitting there thinking about NWSL. You know that you have better prospects as far as going pro, and knowing that, hey, okay, next time CBA comes around, we are talking about maybe a living wage. And we are talking about these things that, I mean, they should be no-brainers at this point, but you got to make progress.
Yeah, and this is a good stepping stone in the right direction. Not quite there yet, but it's a good stepping stone.
Is there anything that you think that they still need that they didn't totally hit on?
I think their salaries need to be increased. I mean, you see what the guys are making, and it's like, it's shocking. I mean, I think the salaries need to increase. I think that's where the main issue is, because now they are getting TV time. I still think they need to be broadcast on bigger networks. I think Lifetime TV is a great stepping stone, and I can't wait to see the progress that they make. But I still think ESPN and Fox Sports should come out and express their want, because they talk about, like, when you watch these games on Fox Sports and ESPN, they love talking about Carly Lloyd, and they would not shut up today about Marta going to the Orlando Pride. It's just they need more exposure, I guess.
I think, well, from Fox's point of view, they carry the Women's World Cup, having the World Cup rights till 2026. So for them, this is all advantageous to try to get any kind of coverage, any kind of views for them on that front. My worry with, it's not like the men's outside of national team, which, that doesn't really count, it's not like MLS is just burning up the ratings charts right now. So
Right.
they're probably looking at it from the perspective of, if the men are not, really hitting it ratings-wise, can we expect the women to do the same?
Well, and I want to interject because I think this is a little bit of an advantage ESPN has over Fox Sports. Over the past few years, they have a fantastic digital outlet with ESPNW, and they've expanded it with a lot more of a female presence in front of the camera on the main shows on the sports centers and even on ESPN radio. And I think that if ESPN really decides with their restructuring and to sort of regain the advantage that FS or Fox Sports in general has right now, if they could potentially parlay that into some sort of network and have leagues like the NWSL and other women's leagues internationally on that network and give them that additional boost in coverage, for the short term, it would be a very rough beginning. But I think for the long term, that would be great, not just for the network, not just for the brand, but for the various leagues that they cover, including what should be the cornerstone is the NWSL.
Well, I mean, think about it from the perspective of, at some point when MLS made that new deal, they were supposed to kill MLS Live, and all the games were supposed to be shown on ESPN 3 or the digital thing.
Mm-hmm.
That still hadn't happened.
No.
So,
and personally, there are surprisingly a lot of leagues that are buried really on ESPN3, and I don't think MLS would want to join. Not really that.
Well, I mean, MLS loses the money that they get from MLS Live. So,
mm-hmm.
And the only thing I would say is that I wish Lifetime had something like that where you could get the one game on Lifetime TV, but you have the option to watch the other games if you want, instead of just, the one game.
But with something like this may propel them into that, because not every league is like the NFL that's able to command what was a $10 million contract from Twitter just for one game a week, or now a $50 million contract from Amazon for that same amount. Not everybody has that cachet, but if Lifetime does want to pursue this avenue again with sports and the new technological era that we're in right now as compared to 20 years ago, this revenue stream could help feed that and launch that. So maybe year 2, hopefully not as long as year 3, but this could be in the works.
You think you see that, Rachael, next year? Let's say the ratings do pretty decent. They go, okay, let's figure out a way so that more of the games can be shown.
I think they would. I don't think they'd be talking about changing networks. I think what they would be talking about was getting more games on, because if you look at the schedule, there's not a lot. Well, I shouldn't say there's not a lot. There's just, I said it last week, some teams get more coverage than others, and I think they'll definitely bump it up more if the ratings are good to get more teams more coverage.
I just hope Lifetime does a better job of covering than Fox does. I just can't stand the way Fox does soccer, but that's just me. They are way too, oh my God, USA, and don't really look at things in a more I'm so happy they're losing the Champions League, The way they cover the Champions League is terrible.
Well, that's because Fox has traditionally been a very jingoistic, very rah-rah USA network. They're not used to being on an international stage.
It's so sad, though, Erik, that they had to use a green screen and fake act like John Strong and Stuart Holden were at one of the stadiums in one of the games I was watching. Like, really? Are we that, have a personal, like, image issue that you can't show them in a studio? How many times have we seen that games are covered in studios where they're watching the monitor, and we know that they're covering the game from the monitor? I mean, okay. It's not just.
No, I completely understand, and I even remember my teenage years when I was flipping over to what was originally Fox Sports World before it became Fox Soccer Channel and what is now FXX, which don't even get me started. And I remember all they did in the era of Fox Sports World, a lot of that was programming in studios and everything based in Canada. And they focused on soccer, yes. I still got to see rugby league from Australia. I still got to see Australian rules football, but they never really pushed to develop a true international presence. And then when they just decided to hell with it, they realized, okay, this isn't for us, but we need the money. That's kind of why they bid and got the Champions League deal to begin with. Now, granted, I'm on your side. For something like Champions League, I would prefer ESPN or even NBC. I think with the way they're expanding and covering certain sports, they're getting better and they're doing a great job. But Fox is kind of putting themselves back in their own lane with this.
It is what it is with Fox at this point.
I'm on your side, and even again, this is for me saying I hope FS1 and FS2 do cover more of my beloved Australian rules, but that's for a separate time. But as you said, for right now, it is what it is. It's like this is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to stick with. This is what works for us.
Let's see. Because FS1's getting propped up by UFC. When that deal one's down and FS1 doesn't get that deal again,
that's not just FS1 not getting that deal again. That's the state of UFC as a whole. I've been seeing a lot of writing on the wall, and yeah, it's not looking apocalyptic, but everything isn't coming up roses either.
Well, speaking of coming up roses, Orlando, they certainly did that on Friday by adding Marta. Rachael already talked about people could not stop talking about it. Rachael wrote a big article on her blog, and then was nice enough to let me post it on WTMnet.com, which you can go read right now. So go hit that up. But Rachael, I mean, how big is this for Orlando and the league to get such a huge star to come over?
I'm so fangirling over this. I love Marta. Marta, in my opinion, best women's footballer in the world. And yes, I say that over Brandi Chastain and Abby Wambach. She is... To have somebody like that. The league has the Carly Lloyd, the Alex Morgans, the, I'm blanking on the person from Canada, Christine Sinclair. But this is Marta we're talking about. She is the face of soccer football in Brazil. She's probably bigger than Neymar in Brazil. That's just how popular Marta is. And to have her come from Sweden, somewhere where she played for a long time and is very familiar with, and coming to the NWSL, it's big in a lot of ways, but it's also big when you look at the NWSL and see, wow, this is the longest that a women's football league has lasted in the United States. and it's paying off because now you see people like Marta coming over and growing and helping the league grow. I think it's a great addition. I think when you get her and Alex Morgan back together, watch out for the Orlando Pride because, man, they're going to be tough to beat. Very tough to beat.
Can I start looking to maybe print out some championship T-shirts? Because I may or may not have a deal in the works. Just saying.
I think you're certainly going to be, if they don't make make it far to get to that point, something had to go terribly wrong.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, I can just send them to a third world country, like the Super Bowl losers.
Sure. Let's do that. But I mean, we were talking about national team, and two big things come up with the national team. That one that is going to be, this podcast is already going to be old by the time that they announce it, but on Monday, expected to be announced a joint World Cup bid between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico for 2026. Of course, that's the first time that it will be officially 48 teams, which would give CONCACAF 6 spots. Of course, 3 of them would be taken up by U.S., Mexico, and Canada, so it really is just 3 more spots for the other nations. But, I mean, this is crazy because obviously there's political stuff going on here. Should the U.S. have done it by themselves anyway, even with all the Trump problems, or was this the way to go?
This was absolutely the way to go because if they would have done it by themselves, they would have never got the bid.
No, especially with international organizations, they love countries that are willing to sign paperwork and have kind of assumed the risk of holding the bag. That's how a lot of let's just say, somewhat obscure countries have received pretty major and significant World Cups, especially ones that are coming within the next decade. And I'm going to leave it at that. The U.S. historically, we don't sign nothing, bout nothing, for nothing whatsoever. We'll pay for it when we have to, but odds are you're going to be the one shelling out their checkbook. FIFA really wasn't too happy about that. Even political stuff aside, they know with our political climate now, as compared to 10 years from now, one way or another, it's going to be radically different. Was that a factor? Yes, but not as big as people would think.
Well, especially when you gave the last 2 World Cups to Russia and Qatar, of all people.
Exactly, but from that financial sense, knowing that what the U.S. wouldn't sign right away, Canada and Mexico happily would, especially since Mexico, this would be, if awarded, we won't find out until May of 2020. If awarded, this would be their 3rd time hosting. Not too big of a deal. But I would have kind of leaned towards U.S. doing it solo simply for logistic reasons. While I'm in favor of a Pan-American tournament in this form, let me break down a little math. The 48-team World Cup is going to be run with 16 triangulars, groups of 3. So that means in the group stage, there's going to be 48 matches. In the knockout stage, they would add a round of 32, which means including the 3rd place match, that's 32 knockout matches. So altogether, you're looking at a nice round 80. How many would be hosted by each country? That's going to be a bit of a fight that if this works, or even just in presenting this bid, how is all of that going to be arranged? Because naturally it would be understood that the U.S. would host the bulk of those matches. What pieces of what pie are Mexico and Canada going to get? What are they going to agree to?
I have a feeling it's minimum 50, 25, 25. I could see the U.S. getting 75, 25, 25, though.
And exactly.
The other countries don't. Mexico and the U.S. don't have. I mean, now Mexico has a ton of soccer stadiums, but they don't have the infrastructure, I think, to be able to have that many games going at once, to have all the people going in the country and all that stuff. The U.S. has everything so spread out that you could technically do it, and it would work like that. That's another thing, too. This is going to lessen the amount of... You're either going to get a lot more joint bids from now on if this 48-team thing continues after 2026, or you're going to get a lot more... It's only going to be certain countries that can host it from now on because you're going to have such a massive amount of... You're going to have at least 5 games going on every day in the group stage to be able to get this thing to still last a month.
Oh, no. It would expand past a month.
No, they said it's still the same amount of days. They would just have... They would either have it where it's like the under-20s where you might have some games overlap each other, or you might have to start games earlier in the day or have games go later in the night.
Well, it would probably be later in the night to take advantage of prime time and a better crowd because realistically, as is, you have... you would still have 3 group stage match days, but each group would have just 1 match going on. So they actually wouldn't need to increase it that much because if you look at over the group stage in its current iteration, each match day with the group has 16 matches. You would still have the same 16 matches under the 48-team format. The only reason why you would have to increase that load is to account for the extra knockout round. I think that's where FIFA is messing up. If they were to keep it with the triangulars and then just have the winners only advance to the knockout round, then this wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, but the whole point is they want that bigger knockout round so you have more chances of upsets and all that kind of stuff.
True, and I kind of agree with you. I think this is going to lean towards more joint bids. Have you seen what UEFA is doing with Euro 2020? They're turning that into a Gold Cup-style barnstorming tour. 13 countries are going to be involved. I'm personally excited, but this is going to...
13 countries are going to host the thing?
Yeah, you haven't looked... Oh, you haven't looked that up yet, have you? Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
For
Not
which
to mention...
For which tournament?
Euro 2020.
Oh, my.
How are you...
Yes.
That's insane.
Yes. They said it's going to be a whole big thing, and there's no automatic qualification for the host. Everybody is in play. I was reading up more about this.
I mean, that's 13 countries.
Yeah, I was looking at this when I was reading more into the League of Nations after the CONCACAF news, and I honestly think with tournaments like the World Cup, if you're going to do that, you're going to have more joint bids. 3, 4, 5 countries are say, hey, let's get this part of the planet. Let's arrange a bit of a barnstorming tour for the World Cup. FIFA would, in my personal opinion, be stupid to follow down that mindset for anything more than a one-off, but if you're going to have float this kind of money around and these kinds of things, it's unfortunately a natural choice.
Yeah, plus the whole, well, you have to build stadiums if you don't have them and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, and again, you're now accommodating for 80 matches. 80. Very few countries, especially like the US, or even some of the smaller ones, would be able to handle it by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the US would be one of the few that could. I mean, like a Germany, I mean, Russia could, but do they even have that many?
I don't think they do. You're talking Germany, maybe France, England, U.S., outside of a few where soccer is really prevalent to where you can't throw a rock without it landing on a pitch, okay.
Right. Well, Rachel, I mean, the U.S. CONCACAF decided to make another big deal. It hasn't been signed or anything like that, but it looks like they're heading towards ratification. The League of Nations, which would essentially almost create this tournament of sorts for the CONCACAF nations where they play each other and don't play friendlies against other teams from South America, Europe, and Asia, and whatever else. Instead, they play more competitive games against nations that they already, for a large part of them, they see quite a bit. Is this positive? You're playing now games that sort of matter instead of playing friendlies, or is this bad where you need to play those other teams?
I think it's both. I mean, it's always good to play games that matter, but still, when you're playing friendlies, like I know in 2015, it was definitely 2015, USA played Germany and the Netherlands. I mean, those are two big games right there. And the USA won both of those games. Granted, Germany didn't have like Thomas Muller, Manuel Neuer, Jerome Boateng, those guys playing, but they still had really good players playing. Europe, I said this earlier when I talked about the women's league, it's just about with the men. Europe is more tactical, and I think that getting those matches under your belt, playing those people, I think it's a great test. I think playing games that matter is a great idea, but I think it's also good to get diverse and play other nations. USA just announced that they're going to play both Ghana and Venezuela in May and June. I think it is May and June friendlies. That's a great test right there. Ghana and Venezuela are two big top teams, and we all know the history between Ghana and the United States, and I'm hoping that John Brooks will be at that match and give a little wave to Ghana. But I think it's, I don't know how to feel about that, because I think it's good, but I also think it's bad.
What do you? The thing for me, well, for one, I get to do what you had to do with the women playing Russia when the U.S. plays Venezuela, so that's gonna be fun. But I almost always it's hard because that's different. I kind of root for Venezuela because they do so badly in soccer that when they get to do good at anything, it's almost like rooting for the underdog. Like you almost want them to do something. But Erik, how do you feel about this? Are you worried about? Is anybody worried about does Bruce Arena get more serious where he doesn't open up the field to so many possibilities like you do with friendlies, where maybe you have to tighten the leash on who you call up because these games matter, or because you have so many of those minnow teams in CONCACAF, it winds up balancing itself out? Or do you worry about that? More fixture congestion for some of the bigger players?
Yes and no, because just to kind of offer a quick primer on the UEFA Nations League, which CONCACAF wants to pattern it after.
Well, let's be honest, though. UEFA teams playing each other is much different than CONCACAF teams playing each other.
True, but even then, they're establishing a bit of a pattern as well. They're not making it one gigantic tournament. It is a 4-tier league with promotion, relegation, and the whole works, to where top teams are playing each other in what they call League A, which, for the love of God, UEFA, do you really want to confuse the rest of the planet with your terminology? So if I may, for my brief primer, I'm going to rename some things. But you'll get the general idea. The top 12 teams will be in the first division. They'll be playing each other. Then the next 12 teams will be in the second division. Then 15 in the third division, 16 in the fourth division. You'll have your tournament, you'll have within your leagues, within your divisions, you'll have groups, home and away, so you'll only be playing 4, maybe 6 matches, and then the first division group winners will be playing in a Final Four. If CONCACAF follows that same
why are you doing playoffs? If it's a league, you should just have whoever has the most points at the end wins.
But here's the gist. Because they're fitting this within the international window, and as a bonus, the first iteration of the UEFA Nations League 2018-2019 will also roll into UEFA or Euro 2020 qualifying.
Okay.
They're really going all out with this. So with each division, you're going to have winners play off in what they call the Nations League Final Four. One-off matches to where you have semifinals and a champion every 2 years. And even within the lower divisions, they'll also be involved in playoffs to qualify for remaining spots for your UEFA Euro 2020. They're still going to use the double match day of the traditional groups with the rest of the teams, but the teams that are in the Final Four are going to be in smaller groups of 5 instead of the larger groups of 6.
Oh
so
my god, this is going to get convoluted.
Oh, it's extremely convoluted. I had to read it about literally 5 times just to wrap my head around it. But that's my roundabout way of saying this. If CONCACAF is going to follow a similar methodology to where there are 41 teams, so you create...
There's like 12 less, right? Something like that?
Yeah, 14.
13, 14?
Yeah, 14, because Kosovo is now the 55th UEFA Confederation. Good for them. But seriously, if you really want to get into a history lesson about separatism in Serbia, stay tuned, and maybe if I get to hijack Foxy and Squid on a later podcast, tweet at me and remind you and I'll get into it. But for the sake of simplicity here, you have 41 nations, so it's 14 less. So say you do 4 divisions of 10 in the fourth, or 3 divisions of 10, and the 4th division would have 11, and you say 2 groups of 5 in each division, it would work out in a similar vein. If CONCACAF decides to do that. Now, if they do that, look at who the top 10 teams in CONCACAF would be. U.S., Mexico, Costa Rica, Honduras, a lot of these teams that frequently make the hexagonal round in World Cup qualifying.
Canada would finally get to be in there.
Yeah, 5 for once. Poor old Maple Leaf Canada. I still love you, though. But they would get... yeah, they would get to be in, and they would be playing more often, and these are the kinds of teams that you would be facing year after year after year. I think if this is that route, Bruce Arena would have to tighten the leash, because these are teams you're going to be seeing more often, not just in the Nations League, but this will be a tremendous tune-up for World Cup qualifying as well.
Why wouldn't you just turn this into World Cup qualifying then, too? It's like,
why
do you even need the other World Cup qualifying things if...
Personally, if UEFA is going as far as they are to link World Cup or to link the Nations League into Euro qualifying. It would not surprise me that, say, for the 2022-2023 edition, they don't use it, or maybe even for 24-25, they don't use it for qualifying for World Cup in 26. And maybe CONCACAF decides, instead of relying on the Caribbean Cup or La Copa UNCAF for some of these smaller nations, they decide to use the Nations League for Gold Cup qualifying. And then maybe they link it into World Cup qualifying.
Sure.
Feel free. If I've blown your mind, let me know. Because I feel like I am way out
I
there.
think Rachael just said her head hurts.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but this is what happens when I have a little bit of time on my hands.
Well, hey, you know what? That was thorough. And hopefully people now understand what the League of Nations is.
Yeah. If you have any further questions, at Squid Sports Head, tweet me. I may be able to answer them.
I really want to see people tweeting Erik about, please explain to me the League of Nations right here on Twitter.
Hey, granted, don't be surprised if it takes me 5 or 6 tweets because of Twitter's 140 character limit, but you'll get a good explanation out of it.
Wait, so hold on. Now you have to explain this to me, Rachael. So why does the word thorough bother you?
I don't know. It just triggers me. Sean, when you said thorough, I literally just clutched onto my pillow. I'm so triggered right now.
So you're saying you can't even?
I cannot even. Oh my god.
Well, this is going to be an interesting thing whenever this does get ratified and they do have to figure out how to implement it. It's going to be kind of cool to see how CONCACAF decides to do it, but...
well, if you want to go for a simpler thing, there's what's going to happen with the CONCACAF Champions League.
That's where I was about to go. Thank you for the wonderful segue there, Erik, as the CONCACAF Champions League has now decided to... This is something that I think UEFA is also considering. Maybe CONCACAF is on the forefront of how to do a tournament. UEFA has been considering, do they just drop the group stage for the UEFA Champions League for a bit now? The CONCACAF Champions League is going to do that for 2018. There will be no group stage. There will be 15 automatic qualifying teams and one team that gets in via some kind of qualifying tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So... all the MLS teams now automatically qualify. The teams that got their spots last year for last year's standings will still get in for next year. They'll fix this apparently for the 2019 CONCACAF Champions League, where it goes into the whoever won MLS Cup, Supporters Shield, Open Cup, and whatever else.
The conference, the best team in the conference opposite of the team that won MLS Cup.
See, I thought Open Cup got a spot.
No, there's 4 spots. You have Open Cup, MLS Cup, Supporters Shield, and...
oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, the best team in the conference opposite of the team that won MLS Cup. So that comes up with the 4.
There you go. So, you guys like this? No group stage?
Love it.
Personally, yes, but there's one thing that I don't like. I have never been a fan of a 2-legged final. ever.
I don't like the two-legged final either. That needs to go away.
Find a neutral venue. You can decide well in advance, especially in CONCACAF. It doesn't have to be in the U.S. if you don't want it to be. I'd settle for that. One match, 90 minutes, 120 if need be. You have had it. I cannot stand two-legged finals. I think that's also where La Copa Libertadores is also dropping the ball.
Oh, they do the double-legged final too?
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, if you look at all of the Confederation Club Championships, UEFA is the only one that does one leg.
See, they're the smartest one.
Yes. See, this is what happens when I research things. I could drop some knowledge on you.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just, it should be that way. It's like you're playing one game, make it a big deal about one game, and whoever wins. It's like, imagine if the World Cup was like two-legged in the final. Like,
exactly. I mean, for a while, Asia tried to do it, but I don't know. I guess maybe some financial reasons they decided, oh, to hell with this. We can't be bothered. Which, again, stupid. But if they fix that, then I'm on board. And you're right. I wouldn't mind if UEFA Champions League went back to the old school 60s and 70s European Cup model with being a knockout tournament. And correct me if I'm wrong, I had someone laugh at me of the mere suggestion that if the World Cup were to decide to follow this kind of format, come back to me in maybe 10, 15 years if somehow this works.
Oh, just go a straight knockout round? I just think they won't do it with the World Cup because it's just, they like having those extra games. They get the extra money.
If they make every round but the final a two-legged aggregate.
Oh, God, no. I don't know about all that. What I love about the World Cup, it's just one game. Oh, you lost? Well, you're out. When you get to the knockout round, you know?
I'm just saying, this is a time where everything is shifting and there's very little outside of the realm of reason.
True. So, Rachel, why do you love it?
I don't like the group stage for tournaments like that. I think the group stage for World Cups and stuff like that is fine, but I think for like a CONCACAF Champions League, a UEFA League, I really don't think group stages are necessary because I feel like to qualify for these tournaments, you have to be like at the top of your clubs and stuff, as in like the UEFA League. That's kind of a group tournament in itself, I see. A group stage, I should say, not a group tournament.
Yeah, you have to do so much to get like to the fourth spot or whatever. It's
depending on the league, top 3, top 4 typically.
Right. But still, you're looking at, hey, like right now Man United's fighting for that fourth spot. That means they would get into the hole where they have to qualify to get in or whatever. And that's great, but look at all the stuff you have to do just to get in. If they only had a knockout round, how much less fixture congestion you got, number one. How much fresher they could be by the time you get to that knockout round. And you could space out the knockout round more throughout the year so you don't have it all be in the spring or whatever like CONCACAF has this year. But still, I like the idea. I really like the idea of not having that group stage because it's kind of pointless. I mean, yeah, you get some shocks sometimes, but for the most part, whoever wins those group stages is the big teams. Unless you have a group of death or whatever, where you have 3 big teams in one.
Look, to bring, and I know I'm being very historic tonight, but it's whatever. Celtic, out of Scotland. They were the first British team to complete the treble. They did so in 1967. Under the format of that time, this was long before the UEFA Champions League was even thought of. The UEFA Cup was strictly a knockout tournament, and it happened to be champions only. Granted, UEFA was like, we want a little bit more competition, we want some diversity, so they finally created the Champions League with the group stage in '93. Since then, you've had a lot of people complain, even some announcers, it's saying you're still getting the same teams. Yes, Bayern Munich, Juventus, they will come up once in a while, but outside of that, you're getting a Man United or a Chelsea or some other team, and you're getting Rachael, Atletico, Barcelona. You're not getting a whole lot of fresh blood. You're not even back in the days of Steaua Bucharest in 1990. So I think with something like this, with the knockout tournament, you're going to get those shocks. You're going to get that new blood. You're going to get those Cinderella teams. I love CONCACAF for doing that. Maybe this gives MLS a better chance of breaking the Mexico stonewall. Maybe UEFA decides they go back to their roots and adopt something like this again. Who knows what could happen? So there's a lot more upside in these situations.
Very true. But I think we sort of covered everything somehow, even with Erik getting all historical on us. So, we learned even more than I thought we were going to with the UEFA League, and now we've got it all mapped out. So now we know who to blame if the US go that same route, right? Erik, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm. Hey, my bad. Blame Michel Platini. He made this decision back in 2014. Send him some terrible wine or whatever. Cook him a bad meal. Do something.
I just hope that you do still see the newer talent still get to play. I mean, you don't need to overdo it with Dempsey and Bradley and all those guys playing in all these games. They already have enough games to play as it is.
If they go with the tournament similar to what I was thinking, there's still some likelihood. Because say you could have a top 2 spot locked up with 3 matches left. You could have new blood in those matches and still have Dempsey, Bradley, all of your top talent ready for a Final Four.
True. Just hate to see them get hurt or something like that because they have to play more, whereas, for a friendly you may not, even though they wind up going anyway, for a friendly you may not see them or something, but for 20 minutes or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see. This could wind up working out. A lot of times they play the European teams and you get the B or the C team coming and it kind of defeats the purpose. So
yeah, example, Serbia.
Yep. Germany, all that when they came. So we shall see interesting times ahead for the international game, the club game, all that, MLS. It continues on with Week 7 next week. Don't know if we're going to do a midweek show or not yet. We'll have to see how things pan out. But for sure, on Sunday we'll be back to recap that Week 7. And we'll have some NWSL to be talking about, as their season will have started as well, and whatever else has been going on in the U.S. soccer world. But until then, enjoy your soccer, everybody. For Erik, for Rachael, and myself, we will see you later.
Peace.
Goodbye, good night, and apologies for the headaches.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.